Hello, hi, my name is Marius Gaman. I'm the representative of the Romanian team who proposed the project Stitching Together uh, for the city center of Åkrehamn. So basically how we started the project, we started with the analysis of the site. Here you can see the city center in yellow. And you can also see in this aerial view basically that a lot of the space is actually dominated by car infrastructure. A lot of big parking spaces here and here. Also the streets are mostly designed for cars and not necessarily for human beings. Also, another thing, there are a lot of spaces which are not yet developed, so basically the public space is not that well defined. And maybe the last thing we also thought is kind of a problem, that there are some new buildings which were built in the last couple of years, which not necessarily integrate that good in the existing identity of the city. So basically we proposed a strategy to generate an attractive urban town center, which is based on three main pillars. The first one to basically everything that we proposed is supposed to have a strong identity, and this strong identity should be based on the local identity. Then, of course, all of what we propose should be integrated in this idea of a living city, the main theme of the Europan. So basically what we propose, we also always take in consideration not only the people, but also the fauna and the flora. And last, but definitely not least, the mobility. Basically how we connect all of these spaces within the city center and how we connect the city center to the rest of the city and also the outskirts. Here we have a sketch of the city, where basically, if you talk about Åkrehamn, basically the name Åkrehamn means port and field. So we have actually two squares, one in the main square over here in the field, how it was in the beginning, and the second square here is basically in the port area. And then this kind of almost finger-like type of development of the city with a lot of green areas very close to the city center. So basically what we propose that the city center should be connected with the outskirts with green corridors, which then later will connect with the hiking trails, which are very close to the city. And then, of course, a very strong connection between the two cities, between the two squares. And last but not least, what you see here with pink basically is the city center which we propose to be densified and not necessarily new development in this green area. So for the densification strategy, we had two proposals. As you can see here on the left, this is the one type of existing housing. So basically this housing can be extended all the way to the edge of the public-private space. Also, some of these spaces can have services or commercial functions, which also will help, of course, bring pedestrians within the city center. And the second variation of densifying, basically, if we have big plots, we can actually add new buildings to try to create a more cohesive and coherent public space. For all of these new buildings, we proposed that the architecture actually is based on the local identity, basically, especially the older architecture, which is in the port area. Also, we looked at the historical buildings, which have green roofs, and also at some buildings which are actually here in Oslo, which have this gallery at the ground floor, which actually will help a lot the mobility. So this is kind of a schematic proposal of the new architecture, where we have galleries on the ground floor. We have a wooden CLT type of buildings with these repetitive gabled roofs, which have also a green roof. Here is an axonometric view, and basically all the red buildings are new buildings that we propose, and the gray ones are the ones that are already existing. Another very important thing that we propose actually are these corridors, these stoa-like structures. Some of them are actually placed in front of the existing buildings to define the public space, but also to house inside pedestrian and cyclist routes, which are protected from the rain because it rains a lot in Åkrehamn. So even the city is it's quite small. It takes somewhere around 10 minutes to get from the edge of the city to the city center, but most of the people actually use their cars. As we saw, there were a lot of parking spaces inside the city center. So basically, with this type of structure, we encourage that people will come by foot or by bike inside of the city center. And also within the green corridors, we propose this type of wood structure, which also will have vegetation that can grow on top of it. Here we have the relationship between the horizontal plane and the vertical plane. So basically the new type of buildings that we propose with the galleries at the ground floor, and basically these are the stoas that can be built in front of the existing houses. Also in some cases these houses can also extend all the way to the edge of the stoas basically, and also you can see that this type of formal language is also placed on the ground floor with this kind of design that crisscrosses, which basically encourages people to go from one facade to the other one. So basically all of the streets in the city center we propose that should be a shared space. Another thing, of course, we integrated a lot of green spaces and especially water features. Also this type of canals which actually take the people from the main square, which is a higher place, to the harbor basically. Also here we have the same, the relationship but in axonometric view. So basically the galleries which are protected, especially from the rain and wind. We have the commercial spaces and services at the ground floor, offices on the first floor, and then above housing. And here is basically all of the users, human and non-human, how they actually populate these spaces. Here we can see actually on perspective from the ground floor. Again, the water features will actually take the people from the city center all the way to the harbor area, with some new buildings and some old buildings which are behind this stoa that we proposed. All of these intervention, also coupled with the extension of the public transport, basically will change the way people will commute inside of the city. So this is the existing situation. Most of the people actually use the car, and basically with all of this intervention, hopefully they will use less their cars and will use more the bicycle routes and pedestrian mobility. What does this mean? That we don't need so much space for parking spaces. So in the future, step by step, we can actually take out some of the parking area and implement green areas, also implement parking for bicycles, and later on that the same type of structure, wooden structure, that actually will help vegetation grow on top of it. So here we have on the left the existing situation. This is actually parking next to the oldest building in the city, the church, and you can see the relationship which is right now and how we can look in the future. And all of these things come together in this type of proposal where we have the main stoa that goes from the mall in the north all the way to the beach in the south. This is basically the main commercial street, and the second main commercial street is the one that connects the square in the main square with the square at the harbor. So this is the second commercial street. And then also we have the stoas which go along the green corridors basically, and again connect the city center all the way to the outskirts. And of course we have all the small intervention like different parking spaces which are redeveloped, and what you see here with red are all of the new buildings that we propose to generate a more cohesive and coherent public space. And last but definitely not least, we also propose to redesign the waterfront to have a better connection with the water. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the two main squares. Basically the first one, the one at the harbor. So here is an axonometric view. So this is the square, and we propose this type of stoa, this type of structure. Again, if the weather is not that nice, people can actually retrieve in this area. Also we have the vegetation which protect the the pedestrian space from the shared space. And we also proposed a new building, this one, which is kind of a reinterpretation of a lighthouse. It's a very tall building for the city. And the role of it, basically, you can actually see it from the other square. So you have this relationship, because a lot of people don't know about the harbor. A lot of people actually cross within the city. And here is a perspective with that public space that we proposed. And the second, and basically the main square of the city, we have the existing building that we kept. We had to demolish two buildings which were over here, which were kind of in a bad state. And what we proposed this stoa-like structure, which basically define the space. Also, basically the commercial square, which is right here, existing commercial square, can also develop, can extend all the way inside of the stoa. This building has a multifunctional, multi-purpose space inside, which again can open all the way in this second square. This is the tallest building that we proposed for the city, and again, you can actually see it from the other square at the harbor, and again, we'll generate this kind of visual relationship between the two squares. And last but not least, we propose this green area, basically kind of a park in the middle of them, again connecting the two main public squares that are in this area. Again, a proposal that basically tries to take in consideration not only human beings, but also plant and fauna. And this is basically the result, all of this small intervention that we hopefully basically will stitch together all of this, all of the existing buildings within the city center. Thank you very much.